Okay, today we are cooking up some beans. We're going to be using some dried beans. I'm going to be using specifically garbanzo beans today, but I use the same method for pinto beans, black beans, garbanzo beans, and for lentils too, but lentils, they only take about 5 to 15 minutes depending on the type of lentils. These are going to take us about an hour and a half. Some of our kidney beans, those harder beans, will take about 2 hours. So let's get started. Okay, I'm starting with some beans that I have soaking here. This is garbanzo beans. I want you to see the difference. These I had soaking overnight, and you can see over here the difference between the dried one and the soaked one. See, it plumped all up. And why do I do this? It helps to remove some of the lectins. So many people are worried about lectins. When we soak and sprout, so it starts to sprout, we're activating the bean, and that helps to remove some of those enzyme inhibitors so that we can digest the nutrients that are in these beans. Now, whenever you buy beans, I buy mine organic and in bulk, and so mine are in this bulk bag here that I need to put away. But I always buy organic because beans, when they're harvested, when they're going to be dried, they dry them in the fields, and to dry them quickly and efficiently, they spray them. So anytime you buy beans, if they're not organic, they've definitely been sprayed, because they want everything to be nice and dry when they harvest so that it doesn't gunk up any of the machinery. So always buy your beans organic. So I'm going to, I left these, soak them for at least 8 hours, and then you can strain them and leave them in a strainer to sprout another day if you want to, or you can go ahead and cook them. So let me go and rinse and drain these beans. So these have already been rinsed, so the water is nice and clear, but normally the water is a little bit blurry. Okay, so here are our beans again, so you can see them in the strainer. So like I said, I could leave them in this strainer all day. You know, if I soak them overnight, then I get up in the morning, I rinse, and I set them in the strainer. That's what I actually do. And then around 3 p.m., I cook them. I'm going to cook them for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the type of bean. If it's lentils, lentils can usually cook in about 15 minutes or even less. But with these other harder beans, you want to cook them for an hour and a half to 2 hours. Kidney beans, you definitely want to make sure that they are cooked really well. But beans like lentils and garbanzo beans, you can actually eat them raw if they have been sprouted. But do your own research and make sure they are right for you. So I'm going to put these in my pot. You want a pot that's large enough that the beans, so here it is. We're going to put enough water. I'm going to put enough water to cover the beans by 1 to 2 inches. And then I'm going to bring it to a boil. So right now I'm going to go and fill it up with water, and then I'll be right back. Okay, here are my beans. You can see I covered them by about 1 to 2 inches of water. And I'm going to turn this up on medium high. I want to bring it to a boil. And then once it boils, I'm going to reduce it to simmer. I do want a couple of bubbles popping on the top, but not too many. And then I'm going to cook it for about an hour and a half. So one thing that helps is if you put a wooden spoon across the lid, that will help keep it from boiling over. If you've ever boiled beans and they boiled over, that can help with that. But you do want to keep an eye on that. Now, something else that I do, a lot of people make a mistake of adding salt to the beans before they're tender. If I add salt now, my beans will never get as soft as I want them to get. I do like to, I learned this tip from Dr. Will Boltzowitz. This is some kelp or kombu. See, it says kombu as well. I get mine from Maine Coast Foods. You want to get it from a reliable source. But this is just a sea vegetable, seaweed. And when we put this in the beans and cook it along with the beans, it will add some minerals, but it also helps to make it a little more digestible, and it will add a little bit of saltiness without making the beans stay too hard. We want nice tender beans. So it comes in a large sheet, and I usually break off about 1 inch. This is probably too big. It's hard to see that it's different layers, but once you'll see, I'll put it in about this size, and in a little bit we'll check and see how big it swells. And so I'm going to just stick this in here. I'm going to bring it all to a boil, and then once it starts simmering, sometimes we get some foam on top, and so you can use something like this to scoop off the foam, or even just a regular spoon, or you can just stir the foam in. It's not going to hurt you, but a lot of people do like to remove that foam. So I'll come back and check in a little bit and show you when I reduce it to simmer. Okay, you can see that it's starting to get some movement, and you can see how much foam has formed on the top too. I'm gonna keep going and see what happens next. Okay, you can see that now we are boiling, and so you can see the foam I was talking about, so we could scrape that foam off. So I can scrape it with that kind. I think that's called a spider, it's called a spider whisk, I think. Or I can even just use a regular spoon, or I can just stir it in. Now I'm going to reduce the temperature so that it's just a few bubbles breaking on the surface. So the steam is steaming up my camera, but when I get it to where I want it simmering, I will show you again. Okay, here we are again, and so it's hard to see in the video, but there are a few bubbles bursting on the surface. I have my oven, my stove, set at medium low, and so I'm going to just keep it right here where I just have some bubbles, a little bit of movement in here, and I'm just going to leave it like this for the next hour and a half. And so every once in a while I'll come in and I'll stir, make sure nothing's sticking to the bottom, make sure that it's not drying out. You could cover it if you want to. I prefer to keep mine uncovered and some of that liquid to evaporate because I like to get the broth. It's called the aquafaba, which is nice and creamy, and I use it in things like hummus. And so I want some liquid in here. That liquid will get kind of a little bit of a gel in it. It's very gelatinous. And it's wonderful for our gut health too. And so I like it to boil down a little bit and just get really nice and flavorful. So every now and then I will just come and stir and check it. But other than that, I'm just gonna let it keep going. Make sure that the beans stay covered with water. Make sure there's no sticking to the bottom, and make sure that there's still some movement, that it's not turned down too low or too high. Okay, here are our beans. They have been cooking for an hour and a half. They're nice and tender, and you can see the seaweed. See how much it's swelled up? Ooh, got blurry from all of my steam. I apologize for that. And so you can pull it out just like you did. Look, I have one chickpea. I want to pull that one out. I missed it earlier when I was sorting them. But you can see how much it's swelled up. So I don't mind leaving it in there. I actually like the flavor, and if I'm making a hummus or something, I don't mind that it's, salty. You can see it starts to fall apart the more I stir. But you could fish it out just like you would a bay leaf. And so I'm gonna leave it in there. Anyway, these are done. You can see how much the water decreased, at least an inch, maybe an inch and a half. It's still covered. They're nice and tender. And so now I can salt them however you want to salt or flavor your beans. And then keep them in the refrigerator, or go ahead and serve them tonight, or add them to another dish or stir fry. I love to have them in stir fries or top salads with them. Anyway, there we go. Okay, so here we have our garbanzo beans. They're nice and tender and delicious. So these would be great to make into a hummus. I like to use them in a baba ganoush, or put them on salads, or add them to stir fries. Just anywhere you would like some beans or some extra protein. They are delicious. I hope that you make this recipe. Comment. Let me know, what did you like? What did you not like about this episode? Please like and subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends. And look for some of my free recipes and my cookbook in my bio. So go to my bio. You can find the link to all of my free ebooks and my cookbook as well. Anyway, let me know how you cook up your beans, and enjoy.